all-time favorite groups in this class is when they made their teams. If we have more time, I would let you pick your own names and stuff like that. But since we're not in a physical classroom, but they decided to call themselves guerrilla marketing, the monkey gorilla type, and that's been one of my all-time favorite names. But anyway, we live in the age of guerrilla marketing, and even large companies have gone to guerrilla marketing. Why? Because it's damn expensive to pay for conventional TV time and all. It's damn expensive to have salespeople. So people are always looking for new and creative ways to market, to bring their costs down. That's one of the biggest things that actually hurts startups quite a bit. They severely underestimate how much the marketing costs are actually going to be. Before I dive into that, since we talk so much about this digital age, one thing they've said is, the 4 Ps are dead. The 4 Ps don't matter. So when we look at our digital age, when we look at the traditional 4 Ps, for example, price. Well, in this digital age, price is more about perception. The perception drives all the price. However, where I would argue against that is perceptive pricing, as we know, is just a subset of pricing. And the reason why is not all products are sold on perception. Not only that, but even in a digital product where the incremental cost is very low, you still have a fixed cost. You have a number of people, you have lights and stuff like that. So you need to know how many of these subscriptions or how much you need to sell in order to start making money. So it hasn't totally disappeared. In the digital world, it's more about access. How can I access this product? Is it going to be a phone app? Is it going to be software as a service? Is it going to be downloadable software? Do I pay licenses? Do I pay subscriptions? What is it? And so the thing is that's absolutely true if you have a digital product, but again, not all products are digital. And so if you have a physical product, you have to manufacture it, you have to think about distribution. Even if you're not doing the manufacturing yourself, you're still offshoring it to a place like China, and you need to figure out what the logistics of that. This is why there's so many people and demand for people in supply chain management, because it's becoming very complex. And it's one of those things that it's taken for granted, but if it's not done right, it can sink your company. In terms of your product, they say, well, it's really not about products anymore, it's about solutions. Well, aren't products supposed to be solutions? I think they just quibble about certain things when they run around this. But what you really see with digital is it's a subset of the overall traditional thinking. And the promotion for digital products is more about education. I won't argue about that. Just because with all these new products and all, even if it's a cell phone or something like that, it takes you time to figure out how it works. And for that, you need education. You need it to make it seamless. And that's what your promotion tends to focus on, is education. But on the other hand, if it's a product that you already know, then there are other things. You can educate someone, but you still have to promote what your brand values are. Here's an example of a piece of branding. This is my company that I had. We were called Energaia, Energy, Gaia, Earth, Mother, Planet. We were a solar company, and what was our branding line? Power for the planet. And so when we were thinking of a logo, we said, well, we want, we're going for the big idea. We're going for the big vision. And so that's what it looks like. So here's an example of branding for you. So right now, we're on this process from lead to repurchase, refer. Again, it's the sales funnel. The thing about guerrilla marketing is, what is it exactly? Because a lot of people say, oh, that's guerrilla marketing, that's guerrilla marketing. Well, is it really? And how you go about designing your guerrilla marketing programs, what do you measure it by, and some examples. What it comes down to is guerrilla marketing is heavily dependent on how creative you can be. And in that sense, yes, there are books on guerrilla marketing, but all they do is teach you about tactics that other people have used. And I'll be doing that in this lecture. But the big thing about guerrilla marketing, those who actually can use it effectively and those don't, is that those who use it effectively understand there has to be performance metrics. There has to be a design to your guerrilla programming. There has to be a design thinking behind it. So the thing about marketing, and especially for those of you who want startups, it's not cheap. Media buys aren't cheap. Travel. For example, you're a startup, and all of a sudden somebody in Silicon Valley says, I want to see you tomorrow. Well, guess what? That's a $500 plane ticket. It's a $400 hotel room. It's a $300 rental car. Oh, and that's just for you. The thing is, if you have a business which needs hands-on selling, for example, biomedical, and this is why little biomedical companies typically don't make it. And the reason why is you're going to need a sales force. It's easier just to get bought out and use their sales force. When you look at SG&A is selling general and administrative. That's basically your overhead. And the thing is that overhead for a typical company is about 20%. And those are, your admins and everybody else paying for the lights. On the other hand, in terms of hands-on businesses, your SG&A is typically much higher, like 30%. Aerospace is 30% just because if you're selling helicopters or if you're selling airplanes or you're selling rockets, yeah, you need people to kind of be hands-on for that. This isn't something where somebody's going to hop on a website. Oh, yes, I want a Saturn V rocket. Eli Lilly in 2010 had 4,000 reps, a sales force of 4,000 people. I think they brought that down because they realized it's just too darn expensive. They had to cut costs. And so that's the thing. Companies are looking to get lean. And so you have this tug of war. By the same token, you want people for richness, but you also want reach. And so depending on your product, you have different strategies. Like, for example, renewal for insurance policy. Most people just roll. I talked to an insurance salesman. He says it's the easiest job on earth. He said because people will just, as long as nothing's going wrong, people just roll over their policies. On the other hand, for something like Windows 10, you're going to need education. These are the considerations when you think about the start of a guerrilla marketing program. And what it comes down to is you have to think about what resources do I have to bear on this marketing program. And also, what's my risk of not going conventional routes? The thing is, when you're a startup, again, your considerations are more than profit because you're growing. And so you are building a brand. Yes, it's going to take time. But if you don't convey to everyone that you're different, then people aren't going to be interested in you. And the question is, can you create competitive advantages? And so when you look at your resources, you're always looking for added value. What added value means is any activity or any money you spend, if it's not related to either making the company more money or helping the customer, it's a waste of time. For example, I was in a startup and my boss came in one day and said, okay, everybody shut down all work. We need to clean this place up. It's a mess. And so we spent 2 days cleaning up the entire place. And I thought, well, why are we cleaning this up? We don't have visitors, so it's okay to be messy. We were not non-compliant. We were in a safe situation. Yes, it was messy, but it was safe. So why are we doing this? And as it turns out, it's because his wife said this is a mess and it leaves a bad impression that messy people can't be productive people. And that's totally wrong. For those of you who are creatives, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My desk is a mess, but I know where everything is. Anyway, the term guerrilla marketing, what it really means is a little war. And there's a long history of people who have worked in have used guerrilla marketing tactics. Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, Michael Collins. it was basically his guerrilla tactics ended up creating the IRA, but eventually he did get some level of freedom for Ireland. And so, but what it comes down to is the two biggest things you need in guerrilla marketing are agility and impact. You have to be able to move quickly, to respond quickly, to make those changes, agile, and when they look at it, you make an impact. So the definition of it, it's a promotional strategy, and you're using unconventional techniques. However, it needs to be personal and memorable, and you have to use minimal resources. The thing is, the problems you have in marketing about cost, and also you don't have that many people and all. Guerrilla marketing addresses those issues. That's why so many people are pursuing it. Not only that, but guerrilla marketing is unique. It creates an advantage for you. And so these are the kind of awareness you want to build. These are the forms of guerrilla marketing. And typically it'll fall into one of these categories. And I won't read them all. But ambush marketing, for example, that's when you take advantage of something pre-existing. You know, when people photobomb each other, that's a form of ambush marketing. Viral, you know what that is. Grassroots is where you're going customer at a time. And street marketing is when you take events into the public. Some of the tenets of guerrilla marketing, and I'll just let you read this, but you have to think of this as strategy, and strategy is about employing your advantages or your weapons. And the thing is, in this age of guerrilla marketing, the major tool that's in your toolbox is technology. So you have to understand the impact of it and how can you do this. Now, in terms of designing it, what are the things I have to think about? There is risk in this. If I have a bad promotional campaign, I could damage my brand. Not only that, is the message consistent with my brand? And so I have to think very hard about what is this going to do. The thing is, I have to think about my path of diffusion. How is this going to keep growing? I mean, just because you haven't, it's just like the pizza story. Just because you make one move, you have to think about every move that goes after that. One of our big mistakes in Afghanistan is the story of Afghanistan is we armed the Afghanis to the hilt. Why? Because they were fighting off the Soviets. And Afghanistan sort of became the Soviet Union's Vietnam. And eventually, because of all the guerrilla tactics, plus surface terror missiles, why don't they leave me alone? Sorry about that. But anyway, what ended up happening is that after the Soviets left, we didn't think about what's going to happen next for Afghanistan. And that's the thing. We waged the war and we did quite well, but we didn't think about the peace afterwards. So what ended up happening? They became religious extremists. They started letting terrorists in, and they started letting in people like Osama bin Laden. And so you could see how you need to really think through the entire thing. Essentially, what's the long-term impact? The thing is, and it's a very fine line you're walking. You want to get people's attention, but by the same token, you don't want to scare them or insult them in some way. The thing is there a value that you're conveying within that campaign? Also, be careful about being legal. A lot of people do illegal things. I said, oh, it's just guerrilla marketing. No, you go to jail. J.C. Levinson is given credit for founding this entire field of guerrilla marketing. And so these are his 7 principles of design of what should go into your marketing. So in terms of guerrilla marketing strategies, I'm not going to talk through all these, but here are some examples. T-shirts, I think, is wonderful guerrilla marketing. Why? Because people are walking billboards. One thing about one of our startups is they start giving out people's T-shirts, and I kind of went, And he asked me, "What's wrong, Dr. Cho?" And I said, "Do you have a website address on that T-shirt? Do you have a telephone number?" I mean, all they had was the logo, and it's like, well, if you don't give people a way to contact you, what good is this? Word of mouth, tell all your friends. Forehead campaigns, actually people putting things on their heads to get your attention. Uh, they're all different. Street branding is very common in urban areas. People start tagging walls. So here's some examples for you. And so we'll go on and talk about the next part of guerrilla marketing.